So today we'll see how to write a program and yeah. So yesterday we have seen some simple JDBC program how to write and all. So first thing is, so what is our program? What we did here, as we discussed previously. So JDBC is a specification, and the specification will be implemented by some kind of third-party vendors, and these implementations we call as what? Some drivers. And this is the driver which is yesterday we have taken one driver which is a implementation of what? Oracle people. The driver name is OJDBC 6. OJDBC 6. So it is some kind of medium where it sits in between the database software and the Java application, which sits in between the database software and the Java application, and which simply I can say what, which is used to convert the calls in between the Java to what? Database, right? And so this is the driver class. This is the driver we say, this medium, this layer, this interface we call as driver, and this is a set of programs. In simple, if you want to remember, just a set of programs. A driver is nothing but what? A set of programs. And because these programs helps you to interact with the underlying database, so what you need to do here, you need to use this medium, you need to use this interface with your application. So we need to register it. We need to register it. That is the first thing. So what are the steps we performed yesterday? I have written yesterday. First, these are the standard steps we have to write a JDBC program. Load or register the driver. Load or register the driver. Right? This is what first I did. So that interface, and this is the task which is done by a class called as driver manager. This is a class which is going to do this task for you. Right? So driver manager. Second is then once you load this setup, once you load this driver with your application, load into your application, then you need to connect to the database. So connect to database, then you get the connection. I can say establish the connection. So what is the meaning of establishing connection? Again, who is doing this task? Again, we take the help of the same class. What is the class? Driver manager. So this is the class which is going to do these two kind of operations, which manages the drivers, Once it is done, then it is also used to get the connection for you. And whatever the connection you get, that connection will be stored inside one object. That object we call as what? Connection object. And this connection object is responsible now. Physical connection will be established. Once the physical connection is established, that data will be stored inside one object. That object we call as what? Connection object. Then once you have connected, so through that connection object, we write the queries. And these queries we call as statements. Create the statements. Who is responsible for creating the statements here? So that connection object what you got with the database, so this object is responsible for creating the statements. Once you create the statements are nothing but Java queries. Once you create the statements, execute the statements, right? Execute the statements. Execute the statements. So this connection gives you what? Driver manager gives you a connection, and this connection gives you a statement. Statements are nothing but in database we call as queries, and these statements will be represented by using some kind of objects. That objects we call as what? Statement objects. Statements, right? Statement objects. So connection gives you the statements, and these statements objects are used to execute the queries on the database. Once you execute the queries, in some cases you will get the results, right? So get the results. This is the statement. This is the next one. Get the results. So get the results from the database. Get the results. You will get different types of results here, right? So we need to see different types of results, and these results will be stored inside one object called as result set. What is that object? Result set is the object here. This is used to store the results. inside it. Then once you're done with this, right, so connecting to the database, writing the query, executing the query, getting the results, then close the connection. Close the connection. Every operation, every query should be executed within the context of what? Connection. Without connection you cannot execute anything. So closing the connection, there is nothing is there, simply a method is given for you, and just calling that method on the connection object, it is what? It closes the connection. This is how we have, these are the standard steps, right? So this is the architecture you have. Programmatically you can see the architecture. So this is the Java application, right? So Java application you have here this side, and this is the database. This can be any database, right? So this is a DB, and this driver is, let's suppose in our case, because I have taken the driver as this one OJDBC6, this is works for only Oracle. This will not work for all databases, right? This works only for Oracle, and this is type 4 or type 2 of Oracle database. Now first you need to load this driver with your class. So how to do this? Loading this, we take the help of a class called as what? Driver manager. Who is going to do this? This first operation is performed by the driver manager. So once you load this class with your application, then the next is, so this intermediate file with your application, right? You need to, your program through this interface, you need to establish the connection with what? The underlying database. Through this interface, we need to establish the connection with the underlying database software. Again, the task is done by the same class. Driver manager is the class responsible for doing this task also. So loading and registering, loading and establishing the connection, these two are the tasks which are done by the driver manager. So once these tasks are completed, so connection means what? One Java object. Now this is the object which is physically connected to what? Database server. This is the object which is connected to a database server over this driver, right? Then whatever the task you perform, every task, whatever the operations you perform, whatever the queries you execute, all these tasks should be performed under what? In the context of what? Connection. So these are the simple steps, nothing here, and those are the different classes and interfaces which are responsible for doing these tasks. And if it is depends upon the database, this driver changes. That is a very important thing. Driver is nothing but set of programs, simple set of programs given as a single file. That file we call as what? A jar file. Stands for Java archive. Stands for what? Java archive. Right? Are you able to follow me? This is what we did yesterday. Yes or no? Right? And all database programs, all JDBC programs throws you an exception called as SQL exception. Why SQL exception? Because actually, technically speaking, your class is not directly connecting to a database. Your class is taking the help of some intermediate programs, and these programs are connecting to what? Database. And these programs, if they are unable to connect to the database and all, so these classes will simply throw you an exception called as what? SQL exception, and it is a checked exception. You should handle it. So that is what I did in the yesterday's program. So this is the architecture of your JDBC. Whatever you write, so your program architecture will be looks like this. Any database this side, you need to choose the appropriate driver which helps you to interact with the database, and you use it. Now yesterday we have written that program based on this. Now this is the program, right? So driver manager dot register driver. Register the driver. What is this driver here? A driver is nothing but a Java class only. A driver is nothing but what? A Java class. Driver class is nothing but a Java program only, and which is a implemented class of a interface called as what? Driver manager. Which is the implemented class of what? An interface called as driver interface. Right? So this is the first thing, loading or registering. So this is a class which has all static methods. As we have discussed, if a class contains static methods or static fields, we call these static things by using what? Class name directly. We call these things by using directly class name. Right? So that is what you have here. Driver manager data, register driver, and this is the class. So this class is from where? So this is the class from this bundle of classes. So this is a bundle of classes, right? This jar file is a bundle of classes. Out of these classes, one class acts like an entry point. I can say what? This is a simple entry point, which this class acts like an entry point in between your application and the underlying database. And that class we call as a driver class. And that class we call as a driver class. Right? So this is the driver class for Oracle database. You need to identify what is that class, because different implementations will be there by given by different database vendors. Then you need to identify this. For Oracle, this is the class. For MySQL, you will find some other classes. There is a common class for all the databases also. There is one common class is there for all the databases, that is implemented by Java people. Works with type 1 kind of driver. This is what you have here. Driver manager dot register driver. But coming to this, so I'm performing two operations here. One is creating the object for a class, driver class, and this driver class is given as part of what? That jar files, right? Now let us compile this program. So move to the location where I have my program, cd online classes, cd jdbc, right? So Java C, what is it? jdbc demo.java. Now it will not compile. Why it will not compile here? Why? Because this is the class, as we discussed, this is the class which is not implemented by me or which is not implemented by the Java people. This is implemented by some other programmer. So whenever you use a class inside your program, your program, that class must be available for Java runtime in the class path. That class must be available for the Java runtime in the class path. And this is not there. This class is not there. It's saying what? I don't find this package. So what should do here? What you should do here? So there are two ways of setting this class into the class path. Two ways. So instead of setting that class, because all the classes from this jar file will be used by your application. So entire, you can set the class path for what? This entire group of set of files. How to set the class path for this first one? Because this is a set of classes. This jar file is a set of classes, and my program using these classes to interact with what? This database. So these classes need to be identified by Java runtime. So Java runtime is going to take the classes if they are available in the class paths. Now set, make sure that always whenever you are going to use this, make sure that such kind of drivers will be there inside your class path. This is again temporary setup, and I think this file is there inside my folder only, online classes /jdbc. You need to pass, it's not there, online classes slash what is it file name? ojdbc6. You need to give the file name .jar, right? This is the path, class path, where the set of classes are there inside this file. I want to use them in my application. Then I would like to add the previous class path which is already there for my system. Now let me compile my program. Now it's fine compiled now, right? And you can execute it, Java jdbc demo. It's not only one class it uses, lots of classes. The bundle from the bundle it is going to use lots of classes. Saying what? Okay, there is a problem in the setting the class path here. This is th, same, because again missing. Okay, let us remove this. This is a problem actually. current class is missing, there is a problem. It's fine, it's fine. Driver is loaded successfully, data is inserted. Actually there is, I don't know what query I have written. I have written delete. I don't know whether this record is there or not. Now here driver is loaded. But coming to the development, we don't register the driver like this. This is the way. There is only one way I can say, which by using which you can register the driver. So registering the driver means what? Nothing but create the object for that driver class and pass this object to that method. What is it? There is a class oracle dot jdbc dot oracle driver, oracle dot jdbc dot oracle driver, some o driver. Just creating the object is equals to what? New oracle dot jdbc dot oracle driver, and pass this object here. Instead of creating the object here, pass this object. What is the reference of this object? O driver. Same program, there is no change in the program. Just instead of writing single statement, I made it to two different statements, but program execution will be same here. Right? Driver is loaded successfully because I commented rest of the code. Create the object for the driver class given by the third party vendor and pass that object to what? The driver manager. This is the class which is responsible for managing the drivers. So this is the driver, and this is how you pass this driver to what? Driver manager. Driver manager dot register driver. Now your application is registered with that particular driver. And the driver is what? This driver is a class. This class helps you, your application to interact with what? Oracle database only. This class helps you to interact with only Oracle database. This class cannot use to interact with some other databases. Getting me? Because this class is given by Oracle people. Yes? So you cannot use this class to connect to some other database. This class can be used to only connect to what? Oracle database only. Right? So this is what we have here. This is the first thing. So first thing, whenever you do register the driver, so what you need to make sure here, so this is the class given by some third party vendors. Make sure that this class is there inside your class path. By if you want to do this, you add the jar file to your class path, then create the object for this class, pass this object to what? Driver manager. This is what? One way of registering the driver. But in simple, because I'm doing this process by writing two different statements. What are the two different statements I have written here? One is creating the object for driver class, and the other one is passing that object to what? A method called as, static method called as register driver of driver manager class. Instead of doing this, the same thing can be done by using one more statement. Instead of writing two different statements, you can do the same operation by using one more way. This is the way which is used in the industry. Class dot for name. This is loading the class dynamically. This is loading the class statically. I am creating the object and loading it. This is dynamically loading the class. So what is that class I want to load here? I am not creating any object for the driver class. See this. I am not creating any object for the driver class. So what is that? Just pass the class here. Oracle dot jdbc dot, what is it? Oracle driver. But here I am not creating any object for this class. See this. Just simply passing the class name. Now when you pass this class name to this class dot for name, so whatever the mechanism internally need to be happened here, right? Just pass the class name to this method. Class dot for name. This is not a driver manager. Class. What is this class? It is not a class keyword. This is different, and this is different. This is a predefined class. It is small c, it is capital C. It is a predefined class. One of the predefined class like string system, like this one class here in the Java. And this class has a one more static method which loads this class dynamically. To load this class dynamically, we use class data for name. Programmatically at the back end, the process is same. at the back end the process is same. But here I am creating the object, I am passing this object to register, but I am not doing anything here. Just passing the class name to this class.furname, it is going to do the task for you. Now this statement is going to do the same task, which is going to register your driver class with what? The database. Internally it has some other different mechanism, right? I don't think which is required for you. Now let's see here. Saying what? Class that for name throws you and checked exception called as a class not found exception. If the class is not found, then it cannot load it. Comma. It's not recommended to write throws keyword. Remember that. Just I am making this for too easy. You should always handle them. You should always handle them, right? Right? SQL exception and class not found exception. You should always handle them by using try and catches. Don't throw them. So what is the meaning of this? So my main method code is going to throw some kind of exception to me, and I am also not interested to handle this. What is the meaning of that? If you don't handle these things, you should be in a position to handle this. Now let us try to compile and execute this one. It's compiled, fine, and let me execute it. Same thing. Now your driver is registered. So there are two ways you can do. That's your choice. But most of the times we use this, because if you go for this, you need to create the object and you need to statically load this class, but it is dynamically loading. This mechanism is called as what? Dynamically loading up the class, and registering also dynamically done here. So when this class is loaded, at the time only it is going to register. So first thing is, there is only one way of registering a driver. If you want to register a driver class, by using this statement only you can register it. But by loading this class itself it is going to register with what? The database. In this class there is some kind of different implementation is there. So this is what you have here, right? So let us walk through the API so that we can still more understand about this driver manager class. What is that? Java.sql package and the class driver manager. So it is used managing the set of JDBC drivers. It is used to manage the set of JDBC driver, and it is also responsible for getting the connection with the database, underlying database. So what is that method which I have used here? Driver manager data register driver. By passing the driver object to this, I am able to load the driver with my application, load the driver into my application. Then the second thing is driver manager, again static methods, very important methods. There are three overloaded static methods you can see here. Driver manager data, because they are static, you need to call them by using class name. Get connection, get connection, get connection. All these three get connections are used for what? Establishing the physical connection with what? Database. See here, every method you can use. That's your requirement dependent which method I should use. Attempts to establish a connection to the given database. Attempts to establish a connection with a given database. Attempts to establish a connection with a given database. Right? There are three different ways here, but each and all these three get connection methods takes one common argument. What is that common argument? URL. What is the meaning of URL? The URL contains what? Information related to the database, where the database server is installed, and in what port number this database server is running, and all these things are called as what? URL. A URL internally contains what? As we discussed, four different parts I told you: protocol, address, port number, and the resource. These four are combined together becomes a URL. So you need to pass the URL. Yeah, absolutely. This again, it's not related to JDBC and all. It is whatever the URLs we use in the over the internet. The same definition. It's a combination of four things: protocol, address, port number, and the optional resource. Right? That means what? So this JDBC API can use can that means by using this API you can connect to the database servers which are located remotely also. If your machine is connected to the other machines in the network remotely, and you can connect to the database which are running in some other machines also. It is not that you should the database software also need to be there inside your machine. No, your application can connect to the database server over the network by passing its address, by passing its IP address, right? And this username and password, they are optional. See, first you have a get connection with only username URL. The first get connection you have only URL. There is no username and password. What does it mean? All database softwares are not required usernames and passwords. Not all database softwares. As we discussed previously, this JDBC can also be used to interact with what? Flat files. When you want to read and write the data from flat files, then no need of any usernames and passwords for accessing the flat files, Excel sheets and all. But if your database, if you whatever the database software, whatever you are using, if it is it is for them, you require username and passwords. Oracle or any other database software, RDBMS softwares, for them you definitely require usernames and passwords. Whenever you have like no usernames and passwords, such kind of flat files and all, you can go with the first method. The second method is also going to do this. Now here, once you call this get connection method by passing the URL and all. So in my program, what is the URL I have passed? If you clearly observe this, so this is the driver manager dot get connection. What is this? This is what? Driver manager dot get connection. So there are three get connection methods. Right? There are three get connection methods. All methods takes the URL compulsory. The URL contains the protocol. This is the protocol. What is the protocol we are using? JDBC is the protocol called as protocol. Over the internet, we use a protocol called as what? HTTP. You might have seen FTP protocols, HTTP protocols, simple mail transfer protocols, SMTP. Different protocols. Protocol means what? Set of agreements in between what? Client and server. And because in between the Java client and the database servers, there is a protocol implemented. Both are following the same specification. That is what? JDBC protocol. HTTP protocol is different, used in different kind of scenarios. Web browsers and web servers use a HTTP protocol for the for exchanging the information. And Java program and database servers uses a protocol called as what? JDBC protocol. As we discussed, two different parties interacting with each other, there should be some kind of standards. So these standards are nothing but a protocol. So this is the JDBC protocol which is used in between Java applications and database servers. And this is what? Again, this is depends on the database server. This is called a sub protocol. This is for this sub protocol is for only Oracle. If you access MySQL, the sub protocol changes. This protocol will be same, but the sub protocol changes. JDBC : MySQL, something like this. What is the meaning of it here? So through this protocol, by using this protocol, I want to connect to a database server which is running in a localhost machine. Localhost means what? Localhost, where we use localhost. If the client software, if the client application and the server software both are running in the same machine, then we can use what? Localhost. If your server is running in some other location, like with this IP address, something, right? If your server is running in an IP address in some other machine, and that machine's address is what? This one in the network. Just you need to pass the address of the machine where your server software is running. But in my case, my client, nothing but my Java application as well as what? The database server, both are running in the same machine. So in that case, you can go with what? Local host. Local host means what? The server is also running in the same machine. Otherwise, you can use the IP address, and this IP address looks like this: 127.0.0.1. It refers to the local host. or you can use my IP address. Let me check what is my address of my machine. So this is my IP address 192.168.1.11. So you can use this one also. Getting me? 192.68.1.11. All are same. In my case here, localhost are 192.68. All are same. Because Java application and the server both are exist in the same machine. If your database server is there somewhere in the 12 some other machine, you can still connect to that machine. Now it is also same here. Now what it is going to do here? Now this driver manager class tries to locate a machine over a network with this IP address, and in this machine it tries to connect to a application which is running in a port number called as 1521. This is where the Oracle software is running in my machine. In this machine, the Oracle software is running in a port number called as 1521, and to connect to that Oracle software I require a username and password. This is the username and password to connect to that Oracle software. Once this connection is successfully created, so this connection will be represented with one Java object, and that Java object we are calling as what? A connection object. So this statement is, if this statement is successfully executed, it is going to create you one Java object. That Java object we are calling as what? Connection object. Now this statement, when the statement is executed successfully, that you can imagine that now your application is physically connected to what? To a database server, and this connection information is maintained in one object, and that object is called as what? Connection object. Getting me what I'm trying to explain here? Now there is one Java object will be created when it is successfully connected to what? Database, and which is represents what? Which this connection object is used to store the information related to that particular connection. Now when you have this connection object successfully created in your application, that means now your program is opened a stream with what? I can simply say your program is opened a stream with this database. Through this stream it can read and write the data. Through this stream it can read and write the data. But internally you are not going to write this. All these are implemented for you in the form of a driver. Right? So this physical connection is established with what? Database, and this is represented by one object. Whatever the operations you want to perform, writing the data to a database or reading the data from a database, all these operations should be performed within the context of this object only. Right? So I'm not explaining any new thing here. If you see the API, you can understand this. Get connection methods, all get connection methods returns you one object. What is that object? Connection object. Right? Are you following me here? And there are three different methods you can call, overloaded methods you can call to get the connection with the database. If this statement is successfully executed, if this method is successfully executed, that means what? Your application is now physically connected to a database, and that connection, information related to that particular connection will be stored inside one object. That object we call as what? Connection object. Let's see what is this connection object here. Again, it is an interface implemented by third-party vendors. A connection with a specific database. What is the meaning of connection object here? A connection with a specific database. Now your application is now, I can say in simply, now with this your application is opened a stream with what? Database software, right? It is opens a stream with database software, and this object we call as what? Connection object. Whatever the operations you want to perform on the database, here it is clearly given. Every statement, nothing but what? Every SQL statement, nothing but every SQL query. Every SQL SQL statements are executed and results are returned within the context of what? Connection. Now once the connection is established, every operation, whatever you perform, should be performed within the context of connection. Without opening the connection, you cannot do the operations. Let's suppose I have opened the connection and I have closed the connection. Once the connection is closed, Now you cannot interact with the database. Then you need to reopen the connection with the database. Right? So every statement and every result will be processed under the context of what? Connection. This is a very important object we have, which is represents the physical representation with the database software. Right? So this is a very important key point you have here in the API. Physical connection with the database, and that is represented with one object called as connection. It has some other set of other properties also, because as we discussed, so this is the object represents a physical connection with a database, and that object can be used. That object can be used to know about the database information. You want to know the database information, so information like which version of database you are using. Oracle has different versions. So which version of database this connection object is connected to, what operations this database software supports, what operations this database software will not support. All these kind of information you can get through this connection object only. Every information. Not only executing the queries on the database, this object is also responsible for giving you the metadata related to what? Related to the database. Which version, what operations supported, what operations are not supported, such kind of things are right, are supported, you can get by using this connection object. Right? So this connection object can be used to create the statements. What is the meaning of this? Once you have connected to a database successfully, then what would be the next statement, next step we perform? Once you are connected, this is the one I'm talking, this is the database console. So if you want to connect, now you can use this query. So this is what I am doing in Java. This is the same statement we are doing in Java by using what is that statement we are using in Java to do this task? This is the task I am directly doing in the database client. This is the database client, SQL Place. The same task I am doing in the database side also, in the Java side also, and this is the statement. Different client. This is a Java client, that is the database SQL client. That is the only difference. And because it is a Java program, this information, entire this connection information will be stored in one object. That object we call as connection object. Now once you connected to a database, what do you do next? Writing the queries. Nothing is there, right? So this is what? Select star from table. No rows, no data is there. Insert, delete, alter, whatever the operations you want to perform on the database, it is possible after connecting to the database. Without connecting to the database, you cannot do. That is the meaning of this. Every query should be executed within the context of what? Connection object. And if you want to write the queries, we use the help of what? Connection only. We take the help of connection to write the queries. And in Java side, so these queries will be represented with one object. That objects are called as what? Statement objects. So connection object is responsible for creating the statements. Connection object is responsible for creating the statements. Right? So this is what you have here. So physical connection is this connection object is responsible for creating the statements. Actually, there are three different types of statements you can create. Right? There are slight differences you have in between these different statements. Now the first way to create the statement is what? Connection object dot, what I did here, once I connected to a database physically to execute your queries, that connection object is responsible for writing the queries, right? So these queries we call as what? Statements. See here, connection dot create statement. Create the statement object. And how I am creating the statement object? By using connection object only. That is the meaning of that statement. Every operation should be performed within the context of connection. I am using the connection to create the statement. Statements are nothing but what? Queries. Now whatever the query you want to write, yes, these queries will be written by using the connection object. Then once you have completed your query, we use some execute methods to execute the queries in the database. So this is the statement, and this is how you execute the statements. So now I don't have any data in my database student table. Let me insert one record into this. Insert into student values ABC, and the third one is course, I think. The fourth one is gender. The fifth one is location. It is somewhere wrong. Yeah, it's fine now. Close this. Now it's fine. Now I can see here in my database console there are no records. When I use this, now let me compile and execute my Java program. This is the Java program command line. Compiling. It's fine. Compile. It is executed successfully. Let's see the IP address I am passing here, and it is still working because it is connected to that server, that machine where the server is running. Now go to your database and execute the same query. Now you can see the record which I have executed through the Java program. Now when my Java program is executed, one record is inserted into what? Database. Right? So statements are, connection is responsible for writing the queries, statements creating the statements. Statements are nothing but queries, and statements are responsible for executing them. Fine. Are you following me? But these are three different types of statements are there. What are three different types of statements? We'll try to understand later. Fine. This is yesterday's program, whatever we have written. Are you able to follow me? Right? Now let us insert one more record like this. Let me insert some records here. Fine. Let me check. 3, 4, 5, XYZ, KLM, OPQ. IJK, what something here, .NET, testing, C, I'm just changing something here, F, Bangalore, Jharkhand, something. Fine, let me run my program. What is going to do here? Is it going to execute? It's fine, executed. Now how many records you will see? Previously one record, now 4 I have inserted, total 5 records in your database table. Yes? You can see 5 records are there in your database now. Is there any confusion you have like identifying these two different terminals? The black one is Java, the white one is SQL. Is it okay? Are you still finding the confusion in finding these terminals? Okay, right? Now here, this is fine. Now see here. Now let me try to write one query directly inside the database. What is this query here? Now try to identify the differences between these queries. Right, I just clear the screen. Now I'm going to do insert one more record, insert. Directly I'm writing the query into the database, into student values. What are the values I would like to insert into this is again Sixth record, again some AAA, some course, CPP, some location, gender, and some location, Mumbai. See, this is what I have written. Now what is the output I got here? What is the output I got here when this query is executed successfully? One row created, right? It is returning you a simple integer. If two rows are inserted, if n rows are affected, then it is going to give that number, simple integer. Now I am going to write one more query here. Select start from table. Okay. What is the table here? Star indicates all records. It's not actually recommended to use, but time being. There are 6 rows. Do you see any difference between them? Both queries? No? There is a big difference here. Now what is the difference? Let us try to understand here. Now I'm going to take the help of this one. Again the command prompt. Right? Now what is this here? This is my Java application. This is my image here. This is my Java application and this is the database. Right? Now through this Java application, what I'm trying to do here, through this I'm going to send the queries to what? Database. Through this application I'm trying to send the queries to database. Right? Now, so this is where my queries will be sent to the database. And from the database what I will get? From the database what I will get here? I will not get anything here from the database. Results. Yes, absolutely. I will get the results from the database back. Now, but if you see the results here, if you see the results, this is what here. Just I am passing the query to database, and if the query is successfully executed in the database, and the result of that query will be written back to what? Your Java program. Yes or no? But if we talk about the results here, how many types of results you can expect here? Now, that means when I write this query, what type of results I can expect here? What type of result I can expect in my Java program? 1 means what? An integer data. This is some integer data. So always you will be getting the integer data back into your program. All queries will return you only integers each time. Yes? No. It is not all. Now let me change my query. Now give me the answer. Now see this carefully what I am writing here. Select star from student. Now what it is going to return me? Is it going to return me a student integer? All the rows, fine. It is all the rows means what? It is integer. Is it integer? All the rows. Is it a string? Then what it is? Now your program will get all the rows. Okay, fine. Each row has how many columns in this case now? In our table, some 4 to 5 columns are there each row. Then how this data will be represented? In the form of integers? Strings? It's fine. When you call this insert query, it's fine. You can store this inside what? Integer, it's fine. Right? What is that insert query? Control Z. I'm going to use what? 7 and some data. Right? Some technology here. Something here. And some location. Varchar means what? Varchar is database, right? So that entire rows and columns you wanted to say as varchar, right? So there are multiple execute methods here. It is not only one execute method you have. There are multiple execute methods. Each execute method will be used in different syntax. I am going to use execute update. What is the meaning of execute update? I will explain. So as you said here, right? So what I am doing here, what query I am executing here? Insert query. And you are saying it is going to return me the data, one row insert or something, right? Now I value, what will be the what will be stored inside I? What will be stored inside I? One something. How many records are inserted? That value will be stored. Now let us see here. It's fine compiled. Now you can see one row inserted. Yes? It's fine. Yeah, I'm not talking about the columns here. Just I am firing the query to the database, and that results which are given after that query is executed like this, integer. This is the query I have fired to my database. Fine. Now I'm going to change my query. Now what I'm going to get here? Integer. Can you tell what I'm going to get here? No, it's not integer. Then string, double, float. What I'm going to get? Many things. Many things means what? Now you will get the data in the form of what? There is a difference I am trying to explain here. It is not simple data you will be getting. It is not a simple integer. It is not a simple one string object you will be getting. It is a combination of what? Data in the form of what? Rows and columns. To store entire this data, it is not one single variable is enough for you. One simple variable is cannot store that entire data. It is not integer, it is not a string, it is not nothing. It is a combination of what? Rows and columns. Now how can I store this entire data in my Java, right? So for this, one object is given, and that object we call as what? Result set. You need to understand when I will get the result set, when I will get the integers. That is the question I asked you. These are the two different results you got here. You can see in this console also. This is one simple integer result you see here, and you can see one big, right? You cannot run with integer here. How can you run with this integer? Select start from student. Is it integer? Is it returns an integer? Definitely it will not give you an integer. So there are two different things here. Very simple to remember here. Nothing complex here. So if your query is, whatever the query you are passing from your program to database is, if this query is of type non-select query. Non-select query. Non-select query means what? If it is non-select query, then always you will expect what? Integer results. The results will be in the form of what? Integers. For what queries? Non-select queries. But whenever you are passing a select query to your database, the results which are given back to you are not integers. They are what? This data. This is a big, huge data I will get here. And this data, entire data will be returned and stored inside one object. That object we call as what? Result set. So generally non-select queries will be giving you integer data, and select query will always give you what? A object, because there is a complex data you have in the form of rows and columns, and that is what? That object we call as what? Result set. Fine. Did you understand here? If you pass a select non-select query returns you what? Integer data back to you, right? That is what you see here. When I return non-select queries means what? All, insert, delete, update, any query, all returns you integers only. Non-select query returns you integer data. Right, integer data will be returned you when you run a non-select query. And when you run a select query, you will get a result set back. Select gives you result set, non-select gives you gives you what? Integers. So integers will be the result of what? Non-select queries. Integers will be the result of non-select queries, and result sets will be the result of what? Select queries. The second one is what? Result set for what? Select queries. Getting me? So result set is what? Again one Java object, and you need to know when you will get result set, when you will get integers. All non-select queries blindly integers. Select query when you are when you are sending a select query to a database, always the select query returns you result set. And this method you cannot use now. Why? Execute update method returns you what? A method can return you only one value. A method can return you only one value as a return. Update method returns you the value as what? Integers. Now, if you want the entire data of your table, then you go for what? Execute a query. So what is this? Just again, I'm just using some different kinds of execute methods. I'm not writing these methods my own. Just go through the API, and these methods I need to search for what? I need to search for these methods in where? Statement. Statement is the object I'm using, right? What is the object I'm using? Is the object, statement object I'm using to call execute methods. So you need to search for them in the statement. Statement, which is responsible for what? Object is used for executing SQL queries and returning the results back. What statement objects are responsible for? Executing the SQL queries and returning the results back. So how these queries will be executed? By calling a execute xxx methods. What methods here? By calling different execute xxx methods. By calling different execute xxx methods and the statement objects xxx. This xxx means what? You can replace this xxx with different words here. Execute xxx methods are there, by using which, by calling these execute methods and a statement, you can execute the SQL queries. But these methods you need to choose. If your query returns you an integer, what method I need to choose here? See this? Search for the execute methods, right? If your query returns you an integer, you can go with this method. Execute update takes what? SQL query, right? Execute update method takes a SQL query in the form of what? A string. If you want to more clearly, if you want to understand, so just create a string here. String query is equal to, write the query. All queries should be passed as a strings only. And what is this? Query. Simple. I am creating my query. I am passing this query to execute method, and this execute method should be called on statement, and which returns me this execute methods, which returns me what? Different results here. And if we are getting a results as if your results are of type integers, you need to use what? Execute update method. See there, these two methods. Did you find the difference between these two methods? What is the difference you have between these two methods? Execute query and execute update. What is the difference you find between them? Both methods should be called by using statement. Both are the methods from the same class, so you need to use this. You need to call these methods by using class name, class object, and both methods takes the query only. See there. Both methods takes the string query. Both methods from the same class takes the same query here. but the difference is what? The return values. One returns you the integer, one returns you the result set. What is the meaning of result set? Now we'll see what is the meaning of result set. Are you following me? So choosing these execute methods is developer's requirement. So that is entirely your requirement, dependent. Depends upon the queries, what queries you are going to execute. Based on that, you are going to take this. So what is this result set object? Let's see what is this. Again, one Java object. What this can do for you? A table of data representing in the database result. Representing a database result. Nothing is there, simple. It is a mirror image. I can say what? It is the mirror image for the table. Whatever the table of data you have in your database, so this object acts like a mirror image for the table of data. And that object is called as result set object. A table of data representing a database result set, which is usually generated by executing a statement that queries the database. And what is that statement? Always select. Always select. Only the select gives you the data. No other queries returns you the data. Only the select returns you the data in the form of a table structure. Remaining all queries returns you the data in the form of integers or some other way. Getting me? So select queries and non-select queries. There is no other query gives you the data in the form of table. No way. Maybe some other simple queries you have described kind of queries may give you. Now once you get the data here, this is fine. So this, now what is the query here? Select query you have. I am selecting entire data from the table called as student table, and this entire data is represented by using an object called as what? Result set. That's fine. Now the data of the table is stored inside one object, and that Java object we are calling as what? Result set object. It's fine. Now if I want to get the data from this object, how should I get the data from this object? Getting me? Let's suppose if I have an account object. Now in this account object I have some data. I have account object, and this object is referred by a name called as ACC something. Now if I want to get the data here, you can use the field names of that object, or you can call the getter some methods, getter, getXX methods on this object, you can get it. This is what we have did in the code Java. But how should I get the data from this object here? Because it is not simple data like this, right? Why? Because the data whatever you get, it is looks like this. Whatever the data you have now in this object is the data is in the form of this one table. Yes, rows and columns. Like this you have the data. Yes or no? Now how can I get the data here? How can I get the data here now? It's nothing, is it? Object is nothing but what? A Java object is nothing but a collection of data. The object is a collection of data, but this is a different way you have this data in the form of rows and columns. First row, 5 columns. Second row, 5 columns. Third row, 5 columns. Fourth row, 5 columns. Each cell has one value. Each cell has one value. Now how can I get this? Generally, what? Now if I ask you to get the data, how will you get this? Can you say? It's a simple question, not related to technology. If I ask you to get the data from the different cells, what is the mechanism you use here? No. Come out from the database and come out from the Java. Let's suppose this is the table I have in the form of rows and columns. I have some data inside this. Now if I ask you to get the data from these cells, now how you get the data from this cells? What logic you apply? Generally, it's related to some kind of aptitude. Now what logic you apply to get the data from this? Simple. Location of rows and location of columns. Absolutely correct. Right, let's suppose if I want to fetch the data from this column, this row and this column. Right, now my question is, now I would like to get this value. I would like to get this value. How should I get this value? How you refer to that location? How to refer to that location? That middle one. 3 comma 3. Is it? 3 comma 3? Both says the same. Yes, right? The same thing. Now that means first you need to locate the row. First you need to locate the row. Then you need to locate the column. Once you are able to do this, then you can get the data from this. 3 by 3 comma 3. That is the meaning. First row, then the column inside that row. That is what you did. Now the same thing you can do here, because this data is in the form of this result set object is almost looks like what? This looks like this one. Whatever the result set you have, the data will be stored inside this result set is like this only. Now if you want to fetch the data from this, first you need to move to the row. First you need to move to the row. Then from that you need to move to the column to get the data. Yes or no? First you need to place your pointer to the particular row. After that, from that row you need to get the data. Yes or no here? Same thing here. So this is again called as cursor. When by default this object is created, this result set object is created, it will come up with a pointer here. It will come up with a by default pointer, or the technical we call as cursor. And always this cursor will be placed on top of first row. Always this cursor will be placed on top of what? First row by default. A cursor will be given with this object. A cursor will be given with this object, and that cursor will be always points on top of what? First row. Now what I need to do here? I need to move that cursor to the first row. Once I successfully move this cursor to a first row, then I can get the data from the columns of that first row. Yes or no? This is what here. So this result set maintains what? This result set maintains a cursor position. This result set maintains a cursor, and this cursor is always pointing to the current row. But first of all, when this result set object is created for you, by default the cursor will be pointing to the top of the first row. Now I need to move this cursor. I need to move this cursor to the next row, because by default cursor will be positioned on top of first row, and that cursor I would like to move to what? First row. So there is a method given for you, rs.next. What is this next method? It is something like iterators, which we have discussed in the collection framework. What is this rs.next is going to do for you? First it checks in this result set object whether there is a first row here, whether there is a row exists or not, based on that cursor position. As I am saying, the by default the cursor will be positioned on top of what? By default the cursor will be positioned on top of first row. On top of first row, not at first row, on top of first row. Right? So next, when I call next here, it checks whether the first row is there or not. It returns you what? True. If the first row is there, it returns you true. Not only it returns you true, it moves the cursor to what? First row. If your cursor at first row, when I call next here, it checks whether the second row is there or not. If the second row is there, it returns you true. Not only it returns you true, it returns you, it moves that cursor toward that row. If you call that next method on the last row, what it is going to do here? Because after the last row you will not find any rows. It returns you simply false. Now what I want to do here, I want to iterate over all the rows of my result set. I want to iterate over all the rows of my result set. So from the first row to last row I want to iterate. And not only iterate through this first row to last row, from this each and every row I want to get the data from each and every column. Getting me? Right? Now that is what I am going to do here. So if you want to iterate through entire your result set, so we need to use some iterator, nothing but some kind of loop. While I don't know how many rows are there. So what is this while loop is going to do here? What is this statement is going to do for you? Checks whether the record is there or not, row is there or not. If it is there, then move the cursor. Return true and move the cursor. If it is not there, return false and come out from the while loop. So before entering into the result set, before getting the data from first record itself, I am checking whether the first record is there or not. Result set dot next. If it is there, it moves. Now in my case, I have the first record. It's fine. Now what I need to do here? Now we are pointer is positioned to first record. Now what do I do here? If the first row is there, it is placed. If it is not there, it comes out. While loop will not be executed. Getting me? If the record is there, your cursor is positioned to first row. If record is not there, it simply returns you false and comes out from the while loop. Then the program will be executed. Now what should I do here now? Now if the record is there, this while loop, this next method takes you to the first row. From this, what do I need to do here? From this, I need to get the data from what? Column. What is the number of column here? First column. How many columns are there like this for me? How many columns are there like this for me? 5 columns. Each row contains what? 5 columns. So each iteration of while, it is going to retrieve me what? The data from 5 columns. So while loop is iterated means what? Once it is iterated means what? It is placing your cursor to a particular row. And I have 5 columns in my result set, in my each row. So I am using the indexes. So by default the indexes will be given, and the indexes starts with what? First. This is what? This indicates what? First column of your row. This indicates the second column of the row. This indicates third column of the row. This indicates the fourth column of the row. This indicates fifth column of the row. Is it fine? Are you able to understand? Yes or no? But here you need to do simple thing here. It's not only writing like this. As a programmer, you need to know, you need to say which type of data is stored inside first column. Which type of data is stored inside this first column, and which type of data you want to fetch it. For this, we are going to use some simple get xxx methods. Now first column of my table stores, let's suppose integer, has an integer value. I am using a get int. You cannot directly move the cursor to a second row. It is not possible with this kind of mechanism. There is some other alternatives there. Directly you can move the record to what? Second row. That we discuss later. But with this kind of mechanism, you cannot directly place your cursor to second row. You need to write different way. Right? So get int. My second column data is of type what? String. My third column of data is of type again string. My fourth column data is also of type get, again string. So what is the meaning of this? So I'm trying to get the data and I'm just specifying its type. We need to know this. So what is the meaning of this? Once your this next method is going to place the cursor to a particular record, particular row. From that row, I'm saying from that row, first column returns me the data of type integer, second column returns me the data of type string, third column returns me the data of type string, fourth column returns me the data of type string. You need to know which data you are going to get from these records. If you have a date, if you store the date, you need to use get date. If you store the double value, you need to use get float value. Like this, different types are there, data types are there inside database also. Numbers, varchars, dates, timestamps. You'll find float values, lots of data types are there, blobs, clubs, different data types here. Now can you see this? Can you read it now? Place the cursor to the record and get the data from that record. And because I have only 5 columns, I'm trying to get. If you try to get more columns here, it throws you an exception. If you try to get more columns here, it throws you an exception. So I'm trying to get exactly 5 columns here, because my each row contains 5 columns and I'm going to get 5 columns only. If you try to fetch 6, 7, 8 like this, definitely will get an exception here. Now after getting it, I would like to print it. System.out. Or if you want to store it, getInt method returns you an integer. This is serial number. This is string. That's your choice how you print the values, how you want to print the values in your Java. String. The last one, third one is what? Course, right? Course. This one is again string. Is of type gender. This is of type what? Location. So these methods you need to use. What these methods? Get xxx methods. According to the data which you have in your database column, you need to use this appropriate get xx methods. If you have integer data inside your database, you need to use get int. If you have strings, varchars, you need to use string. If you have floats, you need to use float. If you have date, you need to use get date, like this. Now I am printing these by using simple system.out.println. System.out.println of simple Java program. Now my data is inside s number plus name plus just I'm appending with some empty spaces in between so that I can clearly see the data. Two spaces I will append in between them. Gender. Are you able to follow me what I'm trying to explain here? Yeah. Location. Now let me run my program. So what it is going to do, this while loop? This while loop is going to entirely fetch the data from your object, result set object, from first record to last record. When your control reaches to last record, then it fetches the last record data. After this, it is going to check whether the next record is there. Then it will not find any record after the last record. Then this control comes out from the while loop. So in the while loop, I am printing the data of each row. Now let us compile my program and execute here. Spelling mistake, course 1, and everything seems good. Fine. Java space. See there? You get all 7 records, right? All 7 records. With each record with what? First. So where first iteration is going to do while loop, first iteration is going to get the data from the first row of your database. Not database, actually result set. Second iteration gets you the data of second row. Third iteration will get you the data of third row. And I'm printing all the data by using simple system.out. So what is the result set object here? So result set object represents table of data of your database, and this table of data you will get always by using a select query, and whenever you have a select query you need to always use a method called as execute query. Blind point to be remembered. Execute query method for select queries, and execute update method is for non-select queries. Simple 2 methods, nothing. It is not like that you cannot use insert query here. You can use insert query. There is no meaning of using insert query with execute query method, because insert query will not return you a result set. You can write any query here. You can absolutely free to write non-select queries and select queries in the execute query method. I am saying write select query only because it is meaningful. It doesn't mean that you need to write only select queries. You can write other queries also, but the other queries will not return you what? Result sets. Getting me? You can write whatever the SQL query you want to write, you can write. Absolutely free to write it. But those all queries will not return you the result set. Only select query will return you the result set. So that it is obviously preferable to use this method with select queries. And the execute update method is preferable for using what? Non-select queries. Right? So then the last one is what? I got the results. I am able to print the results and close it by using a simple method called as close. Close the connection. Now let me run. Once the connection is closed, now you cannot, it is not CON, I think it is CONN. This is not standardized way to use the CON and all. Right, connection is closed. Once it is closed, now you cannot execute any queries on the database. Now you cannot write any other queries on the database. If you want to write again, you need to open the connection again by using same mechanism. Right, so this is what here. Load, get the connection, write the queries, execute the queries, and process the results, then close the connection. This is what simple JDBC. Nothing is there. Right? So this result set, what is the result set again? A result set is a table data representation. Now how to get this? So next method moves the cursor to the next row. Once your cursor is moved to a next row, and after that you can use get xxx methods. Get xxx methods to get the data from, see there are a number of get xxx methods. Get decimal, get binary string, get blob, get boolean, right, get bytes, get byte, all are, most of the methods are get methods. Different methods you will find, get date. These methods you need to choose based on the data which you have in your database table. If you have integers stored inside the column, you need to use getInt. If the strings are stored inside the column, you need to use string. If the dates are stored inside the column, you need to use getDate, like this. Right? So this is how you move the cursor, and this is how you fetch the data. Okay, do you have any questions now? Now we can ask. Otherwise we continue the session with some other topic. So this is the flow. That is the reason why I have written the flow with classes: manager, driver manager, connection, statements, then result sets, then close this. Very simple. It's not at all complex. 1 or 2 programs need to be written. That's it. Because thousands of programs you write, this is the only common statements I'm going to write. The same way, almost 95 times I'm going to use the same kind of code. There is no other way to write it. And different objects represents different type of tasks, type of data, stores the different types of data. Okay, it's fine. Then I'm going to continue. If you are comfortable with this, then we continue with some other. Nothing much here, right? So there are always, you can expect 2 different types of results. One type of are of type integer, the other type are what? Result sets. When you have non-select queries, we use a method called as what? Execute update. For select queries, we use a method called as execute query. Simple to remember, nothing is there. Apart from this, different execute methods are there. You can go with any execute method, absolutely no problem. But depends on your requirement, you need to use the appropriate method. Or you can go with execute method also. There is a execute method also given, that also you can use, right? So this is a result set object. Nothing much you have inside this in the JDBC. This is what you have. Result sets are for this. A simple table representation, almost similar to the database table. This object is almost similar to the database table. Right? Now whatever the statements we are talking about here, there are 3 different types of statements are there. All statements are responsible for executing the queries only. All statements are responsible for executing the queries only. And one more important point here is, out of all these things, every one is a interface only. Connection is interface, statement is interface, result set is an interface. Only one class here. What is that? Driver manager is a class with all static methods. It's a class with all static methods. And remaining all are what? Interfaces. Connection is an interface, statement is an interface, result set an interface. Who is implementing these interfaces? So these interfaces will be implemented by the third-party vendors, and the classes, implementation classes for this will be found inside these jar files. Right? Now that is what important. One more important point. Apart from driver manager, everything whatever I used in my program, all are interfaces. Everything. Interface. Right? Now, but there are 3 different types of statements are available for us, right? And we need to use the appropriate statement here. All are for executing the queries, no doubt about it, but they have some differences. They have some differences in executing the queries. So what are the three different statements are there? And all statements will be created by using a connection only. So these are three different statements here. Now let me put in architecture so that we can understand here. The first one is called as statement. The first one is called as what? Statement. The second one is there. There are three different types of statements. Any one you can use to execute your queries. And according to your requirement dependent, you need to choose one. Right? So the first one is statement here, which I have used in my program now. That is what? A statement. The one which I have used in my program is statement interface. The other one is what? Prepared statement. The name of the other one is prepared statement. And the last one is called as callable statement. The last one is called as what? Callable statement. Statement, prepared statement, callable statement. All are interfaces. All are interfaces implemented by the third-party vendors. You are not responsible for doing. And they are, statement is the super interface, prepared statement is the sub interface, and callable statement is the child interface for statement. All are interfaces. So prepared statement extends a statement, callable statement extends a prepared statement. So whatever you can call with the statement object, all these methods can be called with prepared statement. But there is a big difference is there in between both. Both are responsible for executing the queries. That is the first point. All statements are responsible for executing the queries on the database. But the difference is, so what is the difference you have between these two statements? We talk about the callable later. We try to understand what is the statement and what is the prepared statement and which one is preferable to use. Out of these two, which one is preferable to use? Let us try to examine this here. Now before this, let me try to directly write a query inside a database. I'm going to try to write a query directly inside a database. Select some, like this I am writing. Now what happens here? Now you can see that there is error message is generated. Why this error message is generated? How this error message is generated? It is same, right? So whenever you write the queries will be compiled at the database side. If this compilation is successful, then only the query will be executed. Now my query is not compiled successfully because there is no keyword called as select in the Oracle database. There is no keyword called as select in the database. That is the reason why it is giving. I don't find what is the command you are using. I don't know what is the meaning of SELET. It will compile it, and then if it is fine syntactically and all, same thing. This is also a SQL, structured query language. Every language will have its own set of syntax and semantics. If you have followed the syntaxes correctly, then your query will be successfully compiled and executed. If you don't follow the syntaxes, then it will not execute it. See here, because this is wrong, it is showing you. I don't know what is the meaning of this. So query compiled and executes. Now the same query, if I pass through Java, what happens here? The same thing here. If I do the same mechanism with a Java program, so what it is going to do here? The same thing has to be done. Now here you have a database software. Through which I am going to send the query, which is responsible for compiling and executing the query, and the one which is responsible to send the query to what? Database. Right? So execution of a query means what? Two things internally. When you press enter, it is two things internally. What is it? Compile and execute it. Now we send these queries, we execute these queries on the database by using some kind of object. And what is that object? We call that object as what? Statement object. Right? So we call that objects as what? Statement objects. All these statements objects are responsible for sending the query, executing the query on the database. These are called as what? Statements. Now what is the difference we have here? Now let's suppose if I use the first object, if I use this statement object, what it is going to do here? You understand here. So any query should be sent to the database, and these are the statements which are responsible for executing them. The queries will be executed by using these kind of objects. These objects are responsible for executing this. Now when I use the statement here, now what it is going to do here, when I use the statement to execute a query, what it is going to do here? It simply passes this query to what? Database. It simply passes the query to what? Database. And the query will be compiled at database and executed at database. The query will be compiled and executed at the database. What does it mean here? What does it mean here? It is the one I am explaining, right? So now here, let's suppose, now I am going to run my program. Now let us take the case of my program here. So what is the query I have here? Select star from string. This is the query I have, right? Now let's suppose I am executing this program. I am trying to execute this program 100 times. I want to execute this program 100 times. What happens if I execute my program 100 times here? 100 times I am going to get the results. Same result I will get anyway. But the internal point here is, this query will be submitted to the database 100 times. Executing my program is nothing but what? Submitting the same query 100 times to the database. Yes? Submitting this query 100 times to the database. Now when this query is submitted with for each time, what is database is going to do here? Compile and execute. Is it correct thing to do? So what happens, the same query will be, when I send this query by using a statement object, when I try to execute this query by using a statement object, what happens here? This query will be given to a database. Now at the database side, the query will be compiled and executed. Now because I am executing the same query for 100 times, now what happens here? 100 times it is compiled and 100 times it is executed. Is it correct thing? Is it correct thing to do here? Now let us take about our Java program itself. Now I have written a program and we will compile it. Now can you say when you compile your programs? Can you give some scenarios when you compile your programs? When you compile your programs. Right? For the first time when you read the program, when you develop a new program, then you compile it. From the next time you will compile it. From the next time, are you going to compile your program every time? Whenever you want to execute it? No, right? From the next time you don't compile the program whenever you want to execute it. Simply you take the result of the previous compilation and you will execute it. Right? But if you want to recompile your program, there is one case is there where you need to recompile your program. What is that case? When you modify your code, when you modify your program, then you need to recompile it to get your results. Yes or no? For the first time you compile it, then from the next time you need to use the compiled result, right? But if you modify your program, again you are going to do the compilation and execution. But here it is what this statement is going to do here. My query is same. I am not changing my query, but the same query I am executing 100 times in the database. 100 times it is compiling and 100 times it is executing. That is not correct. What happens here? No need of compiling because already it is executed successfully in the previous case, compiled and executed successfully in the previous case. Why do I need to compile this same query again and again? Not required. So 100 times my query, when I execute the query by using a statement, 100 times it is going to compile and it is going to execute. Is it correct thing to do? No. What is the best solution for this? Can you say? Compile how many times? Once, and store the compiled results and execute the same results. Yeah, so first thing is compile once. At the first time compile your query and store the compiled results in somewhere, and from the next time don't compile your query, directly execute it by using the compiled format. Yes or no? That is the best solution. If your query changes, then If your query changes, then again recompile it and re-execute it. But if until your query does not change, no need of compilation. But this will not done by your statement. Statement, every time it sends the query directly to the database, and whenever the query is sent to the database, the query will be compiled and executed. If you want to compile only once, right? If you want to compile your query only once, right? Then don't go for statement. Go for what? Prepared statement. Now how to get that prepared statement object? Same connection object dot, there is a method called as prepare statement. STATEMENT. And while creating this prepare statement only, the query will be taken. This method will take the query. Right? So here see this execute query. What I'm doing, execute query means what? I'm executing a query by sending the query to what? Database. I'm sending the query to the database by calling this execute query method. Now I'm not going to send the query to the database. Right? So here, what is this? This statement gives you a prepared statement. Output will be same, but internal of execution mechanism will be different. Now what is this prepared statement object is going to do? The output will be same. Now what happens here? What is the difference you have between the previous case and this case? What is the difference you have between previous case and this case? Now because query is passed, while creating your statement itself I am passing the query. Now what this prepared statement is going to do here? Now the query will not be submitted to the database. Instead, the query will be compiled at your Java program only. The query will be compiled at your Java program level only, and this result will be stored inside one object. And the compiled format will be directly sent to what? Database. Now instead of sending the query directly to the database, what it is going to do? This query will be compiled in the Java program, and the result of that compilation will be sent to what? To the database for direct execution. So what happens here? Now if I execute my program 100 times, now your query will not be compiled 100 times. Only once at the Java program level it is compiled and the results will be stored, and the compiled results will be sent to what? Database for execution. So it is faster than what? Statement. What is it? It is faster than what? Statement. Do you understand? See here, I am not sending any query here. By using execute method, I am not sending any query here. Why I am not sending any query here? Because query is already compiled. Already query is compiled. When you create the object, statement object, at that time only the query is compiled. And I am just sending the compiled results. No query I am sending by using execute query method. See here, no query I am sending. Query is given to the prepared statement. Now while it is creating the prepared statement object itself, it is going to compile this and it is going to store the compiled results, and simply it is going to send that compiled format to the database. So the result will be same, the output will be same here in this case. I am not talking about the output here. I am talking about the internal execution of these two different mechanisms. 100 times the query will be compiled and executed in the database. Once the query will be compiled, but 100 times the query will be executed. This is better performance. Yes? This gives you better performance over what? Statements. So whenever generally you want to send the queries, whenever you want to execute the queries, instead of using this one, we use this object, prepared statement, because it has better performance. Right? Are you able to follow me what I'm trying to explain? So if you want to prove this, you need to do some kind of, you need to calculate the times. So before query is started and query completes its execution, so before query started, yeah, you need to take the time, you need to read the time of your system. After completion, you need to read the time of your system, then you need to find the difference with statement and prepared statement, then you will know. Just you need to do some experiments so that you can clearly see the difference. Almost it will be some, I think the difference will be huge. It's not simple difference you have. Almost it is 10 times faster, I can say, than statements. The second advantage you have with these prepared statements, let's suppose I would like to select only one student data where ID is equals to 1. What it is going to do here? Now it is not going to fetch all the data from your database. It is going to fetch only the details of the student whose roll number matches with what? 1. Now let's see here what it's going to do. You can see only one record. Yes or no? You can see only one record because ID matches with what? Now what is my query? Get the details of the student. Get all the details of the student whose ID is 1. ID is nothing but what? My column label. ID is nothing but my column label. ID is a column and it is the value. If you want to fetch whose name is something, here, names, I don't know what names I have, AXX, I don't think this name is there in my database table, then you don't see any records here. If that name is not found, you don't see any records here, and absolutely you don't have any data with this. No records are there. ABC, yes, you have the records. Now let me compile and execute. It's fine. It's wrong, query is wrong because you need to use single quotations. Yes, you need to use single quotation. It is not properly ended. That is the reason why it is not compiled. 1, because roll number 1 has a name called as ABC. If you change this name to XYZ, you will get some other record. So you need to have some knowledge in the database. Without having the database knowledge, you cannot work on this. The entire this coding depends on the database only. Oh, there are 2 records with XYZ name. Very interesting. There are 2 records with a name called as XYZ. Now if I want to pass this data here dynamically, there is one way to pass the data, not like this, directly not, if you want to pass the data later, so you can do this, simply using the question mark. What is the meaning of question mark? At this place I am going to pass my data dynamically. A placeholder, just I am reserving this place for passing some data, and this is possible only with prepared statement. This kind of dynamically passing the data possible only with prepared statement, is not possible with statement. Now how to pass the data here? How can I pass the data? Because that question mark, what is the meaning of this question mark? I am going to pass this data at this placeholder. This is a placeholder. At this location I am going to pass the data. Now this is the data I am going to pass like this. PSTMT dot, there are some set xxx methods you have. Set integer or set string, name, right? Name means string. Set the string at the question mark 1. At the question mark 1 with the data called as ABC. I will explain. Don't worry, I will explain with some other example. What is the meaning of this? Let us try to understand with some other example. I know. Now what happens here? ABC will be replaced at this question mark. What is the meaning of 1? This is the index position of question mark. 1 indicates the index position of the question mark. I will try to change this so that you can see the better, you can understand this better. But you see what? Now ABC is replaced here and her. Instead of this we go for some other query so that you can understand more clearly. Now let me go with a query called as insert query. Insert into student values. How many values I want to insert? I want to insert 5 values, so that I am not passing the data here. Instead of this, I am reserving these places. 5 places I have reserved, and I am going to pass the data dynamically into these 5 places. Now how to pass the data? By using setter methods. We use set xxx methods here. What we use here? Set xxx methods, and these set xxx methods can be called on only prepared statement object. These set xxx methods you cannot call on statement objects. Statement object you cannot call them. These can be called on only prepared statement. Now here there are 5 locations, 5 places where I can pass the data. Now you need to specify in which location which data you want to pass. Prepare statement dot set int. I want to set the integer value into a first question mark. This is first question mark. I want to pass integer data, and the data is what? 8. 8 is the data, and first is the index position of the question mark. Second question mark, I want to pass the data, and it is of type string, like this. Remaining all question marks, I am going to pass the same data. Just you need to take care here. How many question mark you place, definitely need to pass that much of data. Not possible to skip any question mark. 3 question, third, fourth, fifth. Definitely need to pass the data for each and every question mark. This is some again Java. This is some what I have here. Gender, right? Male. This is some location. What is the meaning of this query here? I am going to pass 5 different values into this 5 question marks. So this index position starts with what? First question mark 1, second question mark 2, third question mark 3, fourth question mark 4, like this. So exactly you need to pass the 5 values. Index starts with 1 to 5. First question mark, second, third, fourth, fifth. What is the meaning of this? In the place of first question mark, replace 8. In the place of second question mark, replace this one. In the place of third question mark, replace this one. And what type of data? Second question mark takes string type of data, right? So what it is going to do here, it is going to insert the data into your database. Let me compile and execute it. Now result sets you will see here. Yes, you won't get any result set. Let me comment this. Now after setting the data, what you need to do here? After setting the data, you need to execute it. pstmt dot execute update. Execute update because it is going to return me the integer non-select query. What is my query? Non-select. So I am going to use execute update. Now let's see here. Compile, successful. It is no errors, no exceptions here. Now let me go. There are 6 rows in my database. Now let me select again. Select start from student, STUDE. How many rows? 8 rows. I think in between 7 is also inserted. See there? 8 inserted like this. So there are 2 major differences. Precompiled statement. A prepared statement is called as what? Precompiled statement. It is a child interface for a statement. Where is it? Prepared statement. It is a child interface for what? Statement. It is said as what? Precompiled. And to execute the queries, dynamically it is used. Precompiled. Once compiled, and from the next time it is going to execute the query. It is not going to compile your query each time. Precompiled SQL statement is called as prepared statement. And it is better, always it is preferred over statement to use, because it is used to execute the dynamic SQL queries, and the statement is used to execute the static SQL queries. This is static and that one is dynamic, right? So this is what you have